Why, hello there, everyone. How's it going? It's a MLB and NHL Stanley Cup final update. Oh my goodness, I got a question today about, or actually, this comes up a lot, which is, hey, can I get your other algorithms? Kind of like, what other sports do you do? Will you do other sports? Will you consider doing tennis or MMA? Uh, uh, the the methodology used to create the algorithms can be applied to anything. So the answer is always, yeah, I could do something, but there's only so much time in the day, so whatever. But I do have NHL, NFL, college basketball, NBA, and baseball, and a March Madness bracket thing. Those are the ones off the top of my head that actually have versions of for the past year. I'll put them up in the store on kenbraverman.com. So you can have like the archived versions of, I guess, the most recent year, because there's, for the first time, there's an NBA one this year. So that was a new one that in 20 tail end of 2021 and really the start of 2022. But let's talk hockey and then talk baseball instead of just blabbing. So what's going to happen here is you've got a game 6 in Tampa Bay. Weird stuff going on with the officiating in the last game. I thought that made it a little easier for Tampa Bay to win, perhaps because they got a goal scored against them with too many men for Colorado in game 4 that wasn't called. So it's almost like a makeup game, essentially. Do they continue that strategy, or how does this work today? Storyline wise, it makes a lot of sense to see a game 7 where Colorado wins at home. I mean, this was the season where I think they had the longest home winning streak in history, right? This year, I'm pretty sure. And so for them to win the cup at home makes a lot of sense. But life isn't necessarily a storyline, so you never really know. But I decided to take Tampa Bay today, and I also took Tampa Bay team goals above 2.5 because that was the line offered. The goals that they might score, the team goals in 60 minutes on FanDuel. Took that because it says they get to 3 anyway, and I feel like in this kind of battle, I know it might be a low scoring game, but these two teams have just been combining for offense, and it's late in the year, and people are tired, and just goals are happening more. It's not old time hockey of everyone playing defense all the time, even though Tampa Bay's defense is fantastic. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be great to watch. I'll be watching that after my kid plays a game today, and then I'm sure we'll be watching this game, given that school is out. All right, so that's hockey. Let's talk baseball, and then we'll talk betting. So I've already made some wagers today myself. Like, I like to do these crazy things where I throw like 7 teams together in a round robin, and I won't get into too much depth because it's boring, but I did a bunch of stuff like this where it's $50. And if I hit all 7, I win like 2 grand here, another almost 2 grand here with this stuff. But we're going to talk about what's going on right now, because this was all made last night before the lineups were confirmed, which is something that has just happened today. And I made that update, and I also updated the Google sheet where you can access this and hang out with everybody else who's here. Only one person here right now, but people come in and out of here all the time, and you'll see. So what I decided to talk about in this video specifically was, how do you do something super exciting? I'm going to do like the $25 thing based on extremes. All right. And when I say extremes, I mean, when the algorithm is predicting interesting things like a ton of runs in a situation between two teams and the most runs of all the games in the day. It's kind of the way that the algorithm is programmed, is it's to look for the biggest extreme and then compare whatever the stat is for the person or the team or the player or the whatever to what the extremes of the highs and the lows are that are available in the data set. And so it's nice to see extreme scores. So let me talk about how to look at that and how to take advantage of betting with them. So assuming we got all our pitching stats the way we want to have them, there are some limited pitching stats for certain pitchers, but I decided to leave it because I kind of liked what it was doing to the projections in terms of, like, it was showing the extremes we wanted to see what's going on this year. And it might not totally pan out that way, but it's good to see that that isn't an outcome that could happen. So I left it in there. Now, if you're betting winners, you've got this order. You've got these 9 teams above 10% margin. The last game, not confirmed lineups yet with the Dodgers and Atlanta yet, but it's still there. So, well, here's the winners, but I'm talking about runs and extremes because you can get really good lines on runs. So I'm going to open up everything to show all the game matchups, and we're going to subtotal the game number. And what that's going to do is it's going to subtotal certain columns in this file. like line, like margin, which is always going to equal 0 when you're adding the two margins together, because that's the comparison of the powers of the two teams is the margin. So this number is always 0 in this total. You can also change the formatting, but I don't mess with that. All right, so you also get the subtotal of runs projected. That's what I wanted to talk about was, well, where is the biggest green number here for runs projected as you look down this column, right? See, here's a 10 in the Washington, Texas game. Well, here is an 11.6 in the Cubs St. Louis game if Flaherty gets hit really hard, right? Here's another 10.6, 10.4, okay? So, well, let's just focus, let's try to keep it simple, which I never do, but what's the situation here? Is this 11.6 because Flaherty could get hit the way he got hit so far in 2022? Well, what if he pitches well like he used to last year with a lower ERA? What does that do to the run projection now that we refresh? It brings it down to 11.1, but it's still the largest projected scoring game of the day, right? So now that we have that in a raw form, now let's go look at the Google sheet and look at what the winds and weather situation is in St. Louis. And it is 10-mile-per-hour left to right and not super warm. So not crazy run differential. It actually doesn't bump the score at all from the natural projected score, but it says 12 runs, okay? Well, this game is just starting in a minute, all right? And I'm looking on my phone at what alternate overlines are for that game because the over-under is set at 9 and the algorithm says they get to 12. So you can try to have them get to 12 and bet the alternate total run line of over 11.5, which is at plus 240. Okay. Now I have this already actually over 10.5, but for the extreme bet, I guess I'll make this bet even though I'm doing some redundant bets, but that's okay. So this would be the one bet that I would make right now. So, right. So over 11.5, Chicago versus St. Louis, right? That's at plus 240 right now. It might change if they score right off the bat. Well, what else do you do, right? Where else were there high scoring games? There was the, now that we've changed Flaherty's stats a little bit, you've got this 10 with Washington and Texas. What time does that game start? Probably they're all starting like 2 o'clock, right? That game starts at 2:30, so you got a little time on that. So here it's a dome situation, still says 6-4. The over under in that game right now is set at 9. So there isn't a ton of value there. It's not really saying anything crazy, but there's some other things like team runs of a team, Boston team runs, or what's the extreme under if you want to look at the other way around. Where's the reddest total number when you're looking at all the totals? What's the reddest number here? That'll be the lowest team total subtotal. It looks like it is 6.5 down here under this Pittsburgh Tampa Bay game, which is very low, but the over under is set really low there. It is tough to look. It's why I almost wanted to change the formatting a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time in the video doing this. Oh my goodness, 4.9 in the Dodger Atlanta game because the pitching is so good. How does that look on the Google sheet? That's the night game. It says 5-1, a little bit better with weather because it is 89 degrees. The over-under in that game is, I think I already bet this on one of the other tickets also. Look, I think I bet an under in that game. No, I just bet the Dodgers and no unders. Yeah, I stayed away from that under. I'm about to lose, I think that the Marlins won, but whatever. Point is so we're looking at an under in the Dodgers versus Atlanta game, but what is the under and what are the lines, and do you want to do an extreme under? And I'm going to look on my phone, but I'm also going to look at what the Excel algorithm says here, because that's going to give me an idea. It says 8.5, right? So this thing's still predicting 6, right? So if you do an extreme under in that game, it's already down to 8.5, by the way. Alternate total runs in that game. I can't believe I'm going to advise taking an alternate under as a pick, but for trusting the algorithm's extremes, that was the lowest predicted scoring game of the day. Under 7.5 is plus 140. Okay. So under 7.5 is plus 140 right now. That is a good line for a game that it says only gets to 6 runs at the most and maybe 5 or less because of really good pitching. So that's an interesting idea. What else is extreme in here? Well, let's forget about totals of games for a second because that was kind of complicated to look at. And I understand, this is really, really technical stuff that we're doing here, but it is what it is. So starter, we want value filters greater than, we want margins greater than 0 to get teams that it's picking in order. Okay, this one has Flaherty at the top though, and that the St. Louis really crushes this game with last year's Flaherty stats. It moves them down, but Flaherty gets hit hard. So you can see it moves them down to here with only a 10% margin. So, all right, let's look again. I wanted to sort by something else. I want to sort by team runs. I want to sort descending team runs projected is what I wanted. So descending runs projected is going to show you the team that it thinks is going to score the most. So it thinks St. Louis is going to get the most, then Kansas City, then Texas, then Minnesota. And Minnesota is always going up against Colorado stats, which make them a little weird. Then Boston. Also, we're looking at the lines of these teams to see is there a benefit. Well, here's something interesting. Detroit's supposed to get 6 runs up against Bo Brisky in Arizona. There's actually a good line. So Detroit team runs is basically a sneaky over on here because I'm sure it's not going to be set that high. So let's go take a look at that for a second. Is here in the matchup sheet, Detroit game is down here. The over-under is set at 9. I bet you're going to be able to get what, over 4 runs probably. I'm looking at it on my phone. And Detroit team runs. I mean, can you believe you're betting on Detroit team runs? Right? It seems like something like, oh my God, why on earth would anybody do that? Like they're not known for having a good offense, but the algorithm knows better than us. And that's where you can take advantage of the odds in the marketplace. Doesn't win every time, but wins more than it should. So yeah, it's only 4. So you can get a push on only 4 runs for Detroit at minus 114. So I'm looking at what's happening here, and I'm seeing a 7.888 ERA for Dallas Keuchel. A new team, even though he's going to try to be winning, new team, like why on earth wouldn't Detroit accidentally get some runs in this game where Bo Brisky probably gives up some anyway and they're fighting for runs? So it says they get to 6, right? And if you use last year's stats, they still get to 4.7, which is more than 4. So we can bet that. So this is Detroit over 4 runs. Hoping for a push or better at minus 114, I believe is the line I saw. Yes, that's what it is. So that's something. Now, assume you just took these 3 because we did a bunch of research and we don't have all day. Now, you can do different types of round robins. Like this is a nice $100 one if you want to spend $100. In this case, you get 859 or winning 7.5 to 1 if you hit all 3. If Detroit doesn't score for you for some reason, you still double your money going 2 and 3. And that's also, but that's if you win the other 2 there. Okay, so if you lose one of the bigger ones like this alternate over, then you only do a little better than breaking even. Okay, so you have to go 2 and 1 or better. But we just did all that research to hopefully do that. Alternate unders can be tough, but this is kind of extreme stuff the algorithm says. You can keep doing this and grabbing different alternate overs. Like there's that Oakland and Kansas City game, and over alternate overs in that game, crazy lines there. I'm sure you can get something for like plus 250 or something or better. And then you can start to spread this out under a different number of teams. Okay, so now you have $110 bet that pays $1,800. If you lose one of these big ones, your payout drops dramatically. It drops by $1,500 losing that game. That's why you get these crazy, crazy swings on one game if you've won all of them and you're looking at the last game, which I think it's a way of taking advantage of the gambling system for its purpose, which is who doesn't want to have a lot of money riding on a game that they could win, but not have to risk a lot of money to get there. I love that idea. I mean, you can bet these things as little as 10 cents, right? Look at what 10 cents is here, just to put it in perspective. $1.10 could win $18. $1.10 could win you dinner, right? And And some people are like, all right, I can do $10 or $11, $181 to hit something like this. And you're probably on average going to go like a 2-2 day on average, but which is even with these crazy lines if you hit the good ones. But when you get one of those days, this is why I've done enough of these trials and I looked at my account balance and looked at my trends and just, I'm like, yes, I lose for days. Sometimes I lose for weeks. Sometimes you even lose for a month. It's crazy. And then you'll hit one and then a few in like a week. And people are like, oh my God, did you just hit like 10 in a row? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, did you have it? I'm like, kinda had some of it. I won some money, but I didn't have everything. And I'm like, if you just pay attention to this thing and keep at it and throw stuff together, you have no choice but to have the odds play themselves out in the long run. That's the way I look at it. So that's my advice, is read into the algorithm, look into everything, look for extremes and bet where the extremes are, because there's a reason those extremes are getting kicked out. And as long as the data is reasonable, like look at this craziness. Alec Mills, what happened to these last year's Alec Mills stats? All right, still a 5-5 game. Like you can't even get this game below 9.5 runs no matter what you do. So it's like, all right, well, if everything's wrong and none of this happens and the algorithm isn't right, and this game ends up being 1-0 Chicago, right? That can happen, but in general, it doesn't. Like most of the time, a lot of this stuff plays itself out in a similar way to the past. So, all right, guys, good luck, everyone. I guess I'm rooting for Tampa Bay, even though I'm secretly rooting for Colorado because I like Colorado better. I think they're the better team. But I'm amazed at Cooper's coaching and how he wins everywhere. And for some reason, that guy knows how to win. And this is home. This is going to be a fun game to watch. And no matter who wins, it's going to be enjoyable to watch in hockey. So good luck, everybody. May all your picks be winning. May all your stream betting be fun. And don't bet too much. Don't bet to the point where if you lose, you care. If you care when you lose, you're not doing this right. You got to laugh when you lose, because that's what you're doing here, is you're trying to play the odds, but you could lose everything every day. So I say a few things. One is never listen to me, always listen to the algorithm. It's the first thing I say. The other thing I say is if you're the kind of person who likes to bet your entire bankroll in one day, then you're going to find yourself one day losing your entire bankroll. So keep that in mind. All right, good luck.